It's time for the Week 9 episode of Cole's Buckeye Corner here on the Keon Sports YouTube channel. Of course, Cole's Buckeye Corner, as always, is sponsored by Hinckley Roofing. Huge shout out to them, again, for being excellent sponsors here of this show. Again, any roofing needs that you have, make sure you reach out to Hinckley Roofing. Before we hit the really full-on winter season, as, of course, the leaves are changing and the weather has certainly been changing as well. Make sure you reach out to them before it really gets too late into the season. Now, want to touch on the biggest thing to talk about. I was fortunately wrong last week. I picked Penn State to beat Ohio State. Felt like they had been playing a lot of close games in the shoe in recent history and gave my reasons for why it had been close. Ohio State has had to make some comebacks. They've had to, maintain some really close leads. And Penn State hasn't won against Ohio State in a while, and you feel that their time's coming at some point. Well, it's not this year. And fortunately, I was wrong on my prediction there with that one. Was it a dominant performance for Ohio State? Defensively, yes. Offensively, absolutely not. It was low scoring, but in the end, the Buckeyes still came out on top, and that's the most important thing. They remain undefeated in that third spot right now in the rankings, and that's a huge thing for Buckeye Nation to see this Ohio State team win a lot of tough games already in their slate, and it's been a lot of close games too that they've won out of those tough matchups. Like I mentioned, the defense was incredible. They played extremely well, and part of that has to do with the defense of Ohio State, part of that has to do with the play calling, the coaching of Penn State, and not being able to get things done offensively. So for the Buckeyes, they need to find a way to keep up that defensive showing, and I'll touch on that here in just a moment. But for Penn State, they struggled on third downs severely. I thought James Franklin and his staff, they were too conservative at times. Third and long, they're running the football instead of letting Drew Aller throw it. Aller didn't play that well in that game, which is part of the reason why I thought Penn State was going to win, is because Aller is an incredible talent. But for some reason, Penn State hasn't let him uncork this season. They haven't really taken him off of ice, let him throw the ball down the field. It's been a lot of release the football quickly, check downs, and I think they have enough weapons on the outside. Maybe not the same wide receivers that Ohio State has, but they have enough guys to spread the ball out too. And they have two great running backs in Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. And they just didn't get it done offensively, and I think a lot of that has to do with the coaches and the play calling. And they really need to let their weapons be weapons, let them loose, instead of all this dink and dunk and short things. So Penn State's got a ways to go with their coaching staff. Is James Franklin the guy for Penn State for years to come? I would argue no. I think he's a good coach, but not a great coach. But I think Penn State has every ability to be a great team. Especially as times potentially change, where we know Ohio State's not going anywhere. Allegations are beginning with Michigan and investigations going on. If for some reason there's bans for them for the postseason or anything along those lines, it's going to hurt recruiting and set them back for a while. And then Penn State should really be that number 2 team behind Ohio State then. So they're in a spot where they can be one of those top talents, and I think they are one of those still top talented teams. For me, I still think they're top 6, 7 best teams in the country, but they need to get their offensive game going a little bit more, and James Franklin needs to let his quarterback play to the best of his abilities. But for the Ohio State, though, it's facing Fickell. That's what it is. Luke Fickell was at Ohio State that one year where he had to really fill in as an interim head coach. Really liked Fickell as a leader for Ohio State during a difficult time for the program, and really helped them through that point in time right before Urban Meyer then took over as head coach. Went down to Cincinnati, was successful with Cincinnati, and now he's gone up to Wisconsin, and I think he's going to do really good things in the Big Ten with Wisconsin. But will Fickell's knowledge for Ohio State help him in the long run? I don't necessarily know if it adds a huge advantage, because it's been quite a while. The offense has changed, the team's changed, staffs have changed since that time. It's been a while, but Fickell is familiar with Ohio State, that's for sure. He's leading a 5-2 Wisconsin team, but it's not a great 5-2 Wisconsin team. They've had a lot of close wins against teams that you think that a typical Wisconsin team would clean house with and really blow them out and dominate. It's been close. It's been defensive. They have a couple losses here. This isn't the Wisconsin program that sometimes you're used to, where they come into an Ohio State game, mid to late season, and they have one loss, right? Wisconsin's been a team that you can look at as they've been the best team in the West for years. At times, Iowa is up there. At times, Minnesota's been up there. But in general, the overall slate, I'd say Wisconsin has been the team that's looked at as this is the best one. Iowa slots in after that, and then sometimes Northwestern's good. Sometimes Minnesota's good. Sometimes there's other teams that are good. But Wisconsin's typically been good. Haven't been as good in the last couple of years. And you would think that they're going to bounce back and take some steps in the right direction. I thought they'd be better this year than what they've been to this point. Do you want to say something that they're good at is kicking that football? Nathaniel Vakos, shout out to him. Transfer from Ohio, left the MAC to go to the Big Ten to kick at Wisconsin. Maybe the best high school kicker I have seen in my years of covering high school football. Was a stud at Avon for the Eagles. Could hit 60-yarders as a high schooler. So impressive. What a leg. The accuracy is great. Again, he's a guy who Wisconsin's going to probably need if they want any chance of beating the Buckeyes, because any points are going to be crucial. So taking 3 will be helpful for them. So Vakos, a guy to watch out for. Before Ohio State, who will lead the Ohio State backfield? Travion Henderson's the leading rusher for the team this year, but he has under 300 yards because he's been out for multiple games. When he's been playing, he's been more explosive than he was last year, so that's a good thing. But Travion Henderson not being on the field, it isn't a great thing, and it's typical for him to not be out there for long stretches of time, which is unfortunate and potentially hurts his draft stock. It potentially hurts what he can do at the next level when he's such a talented running back, and it's a shame to see that. Dallin Hayden, they really seem to be trying to hold on to that red shirt. They had to take him off ice. They had to play him the other week, but they really didn't in the past week against Penn State. So they went the route then of Chip Trayanum and Mayan Williams. 2 physical running backs. They're good running backs, but they're not to the same level of Travion Henderson and Dallin Hayden. I think there's good things there, but Mayan Williams, he's not a speedster. He's certainly a bowling ball. He'll get you short yardage situations, in the goal to go situations, and do what you need him to do. But if it comes to breaking off big plays, that's not really him typically. Chip Trayanum adds a different aspect, a little bit of speed. But again, he's still the guy who he's quick, but it's a lot of power. So again, I just question who's the guy you give the rock to. You have a ton of guys to choose from, but I know ones I'd rather see rather than others. So I mentioned earlier, can the defense keep it up for Ohio State? Well, they played really well against Penn State, and part of that is probably Penn State's coaching staff and play calling and how they managed that game. But Ohio State's defense and Jim Knowles deserves a lot of credit. I like the pressure that they've applied. Moving JT Tuimoloau around has helped their pass rush significantly rather than just keeping it at the left end spot. So that was a good thing. And Tuimoloau gave Fashanu some headaches, who's an excellent left tackle and going to be a top 10 pick in this upcoming draft. So very pleased with what the defense did. I think they're going to be able to keep it up against Wisconsin. Not a high-powered offense, a team that, I think, passing-wise, has like 3 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I mean, quarterback-wise for them, they're not having the best success. So we'll see if Ohio State can really create some pressure, generate that, make things difficult for them. Marvin Harrison Jr., he's had some drops, and it's uncharacteristic for him, but I think it's nothing to be concerned about. Because C.J. Stroud was one of the most accurate passers I think I've seen at the college level. He put everything on the money. There's been a lot of passes that, on a slant, needs to be put into the chest or just out ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., and it's put slightly behind him. So, kind of has to reach down and behind and isn't able to get a good, clean catch on that one. There's been situations where Sure, there's been a few drops, but I think it's also had to do with the placement of the pass. And you think a guy with that great of hands, that great of a receiver, if it hits his hands, he's got to haul it in. I would say yes, but at the same time, when they're moving at full speed, the opposite direction of where that football is going, it makes things difficult. I'm not overly concerned. Marvin Harrison Jr. is putting up great stats this year. He's playing really well. If Kyle McCord can be even more accurate and hit Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to put up even bigger numbers throughout the rest of the season. My prediction for this game, Ohio State, despite going on the road to a tough environment, up to Wisconsin. Madison is not an easy place to play there at Camp Randall Stadium, but this isn't a Wisconsin team I'm nearly as scared about. I think Fickell still has another couple years of getting this program established before they can take it potentially to the next level and play even tougher. I don't think they have the offensive firepower to be able to keep up with Ohio State. I think if any team scores over 20 points, the game is definitely going the way of Ohio State. And that's why I have the Buckeyes winning this one 27-13. Still a pretty defensive battle, but in the end, the Buckeyes, they come away with it. And in a game that might be a little bit similar to that Penn State game where I think it is very defensive, Ohio State ultimately prevails, keep the perfect record. So, Ohio State playing at night though. Again, like I said, that's a night game. So you're going to have to wait around all day. So, got to find some good games to watch earlier in the day. So some previews, there's 3 of them at 3:30. And I'm going to say with my must-watch 3, at number 1, man, the Pac-12 has had so many good matchups, so many good games this year. They've, I think, almost every single week made it on my list, if not every single week. But I'm going to start off with number 8, Oregon, at number 13, Utah. That's Saturday at 3:30, as I mentioned. Going to be a really fun one there. Oregon's more of a high-powered offense, and Utah, they're just gritty. Most Pac-12 teams don't play like Utah plays, but Utah's a tough team and sometimes gets overlooked. They're lurking outside the top 10, and if they beat Oregon, they will definitely get up to probably at least that 10 spot. At number 2, 2 teams that I think are fairly level. That's number 20 Duke at number 18 Louisville at 3:30. And that one is between 2 teams that gave Notre Dame fits. Louisville won. They pulled off the upset. Duke was close but couldn't quite win it. But I think in this one, even though things might favor Louisville because they're at home, Duke is still going to be able to give Louisville some headaches there in this game. And I think this is going to be neck and neck down to the final stages of this one. And then I'm going to go to the MAC again. I did it last week, but Toledo did beat Miami of Ohio last week. And now Miami of Ohio, one of the maybe 2-3 best teams in the conference, they're trying to bounce back. But they have to go on the road to Ohio, one of those other best teams in the conference. Both of them have 2 losses now at this point. That one's at 3:30. That could be really fun. CBS Sports Network is where you can check that one out on Saturday. So 3 games to preview. Walking into Ohio State and Wisconsin on NBC on Saturday night. I'm, of course, looking forward to that one, and I want to thank everybody for watching and listening here to the show this week for Week 9 of Cole's Buckeye Corner, Week 10 next week. Also, make sure, start of the postseason, playoffs for high school football, all of the written recap articles on keyonsports.com. Make sure you check those out tonight, as well as going into Saturday morning. For myself, Cole McDaniel, go Bucks.